Guys, how's it going?
Absolutely terrific, Michael. Any fitter, I don't think I could stand it.
I know me and you have played a bit of golf, Dennis, so I've seen you and stuff. But Steve, I feel like I've not seen you in forever.
No, I've just been lying on a sofa drinking beer for 18 months. It's been great.
Yeah, it sounds like we've had a similar 18 months. I like it.
Things are starting to happen again, though. So it's interesting times, and I think everybody's appreciating that things are happening.
Yeah, brilliant. It's like I know we spoke a few months back before when things weren't looking so positive, and it was we were very much like, oh, what's it going to be like when it's finished? Is people still going to want to go out and all that kind of stuff? But I think it's clear now to everyone, and really assuringly so, that people do want to go out and they're not frightened. They just want to be back out and doing things.
Well, that's for sure, Michael, because we did a show up at Mitten Fold up in Whalley. They've just renovated the hotel, and we put a show on there, Steve and myself, and there was over 200 people, and they were just delighted to be there. And I hope Steve's arms recovered. He was having terrible pains with his left arm, putting it on the table. That was his excuse anyway, but he still played all right.
Oh, brilliant stuff, guys. Well, that's why we're here today. We're here to talk about these shows coming up. That 1985 final, 36 years ago now, and it's still so important to people. One of the first things I was going to ask you, Steve, is, 3 finals, 3 titles before that, 3 titles after, 6 in total. Do you ever get annoyed that that's the one that people talk about most?
No, I've embraced it fully. My psychoanalyst and therapist, sports therapist, has basically cured me of any real problems with that. Do you know what? Now it's wonderful that it's still getting attention in a way. It was a sign of the times that so many people were watching. Incredible audience. And I know there were only 3 TV channels. It was like, to some degree, there wasn't much going on the weekends as there is now. But it just seemed like, we created a bit of history. We didn't know what was happening, and it's marvelous to still sort of be talking about it. I even though I was on the receiving end. I know Dennis doesn't get bored of talking about it, but I don't either. I just think it's sort of, it's something it's a distant memory, but it's something that's, full well it was there. With so many people got enjoyment from it.
Yeah, well, I was saying to Dennis before we started recording, and I've said this before to him, I'll be honest about trying to make you guys feel old. At that time, I was a twinkle in my dad's eye, so I didn't see the final live. But even with all the snooker I've watched, I'm a big snooker fan. That is still the final that to me is the most famous and iconic. It's like it just, it was almost like a learn. You looked at snooker, and that's the final you had to learn. That's the final you had to know about. Why do you think that time in snooker was so important to people and captivated so many people? You've seen recently with like the Louis Theroux documentary, for instance. It's just a time that people were so fascinated by.
I think the mid-'80s was the time for the game. I mean, the game started to grow. I mean, you go way back to Pop Black, which was watched by millions as well. And then I think when the BBC gave the World Championship blanket coverage in 1977, that's when the audience started to grow. And by the time we got to the 80s, it was just incredible. I mean, snooker was way ahead of golf and football, more viewing figures. So the 80s was the era where everybody seemed to watch it, as many ladies as men watching, as well as the youngsters. So I think it was great to be involved at that particular time. And of course, Steve, to dominate the game for 10 years in the 80s was some achievement, as it was for Stephen Hendry to do it in the 90s. But I think the 80s was really the boom time. And as Steve said, there was only 3 channels. Now there's so much choice, and you'd never ever get that amount of people tuning in at that time of the night, nearly 19 million at midnight. So yeah, it was great to have been involved at that particular time.
Yeah, definitely. And Dennis, I've got to ask you, I know you as a extremely accomplished player. I think you were world number 11 when you went into that final. You'd already been in the final and you won lots of tournaments after. But I feel like it changed your life more. Do you ever think that? Do you ever think where you'd be without that final and realise the magnitude of it?
Funny enough, occasionally people say what it'd been like if Steve had knocked the black in. It's something I've never let my mind wander off to. I've never thought about it. What it would have been like. I mean, I was very busy. I'd got to the final, and then I'd won the Grand Prix, my first ranking event. So things were going along very nicely indeed. But that final did change my life. It didn't change it in respect to where I was living. I still was living in the same house and that, but everyone's attitude towards me was incredible. The fact that I managed to beat Steve, who very few people could do in the 80s, and to do it the way I did do it was just a huge bonus. But that definitely was life-changing for me.
Yeah, well, there's no more iconic moment than, the queue up in the air with the glasses and stuff. I mean, you just think snooker, you think of that moment. But something I've always thought about, were you guys friends beforehand? I know there's things said about you, Steve, when you was in your absolute prime, you'd keep yourself to yourself and, you just do your own thing. But did you guys know each other, like, were friends before? And did you instantly have a respect for each other after, or did that take time to grow?
Well, yeah, obviously there's two aspects, and that even today there is, but more so even then, there's two aspects to being a snooker player back in the 80s. One was the competitions, where you're in that mode and zone. So you may not be the friendliest person, you may not be the party animal, you may not be gregarious, you may keep your distance from the other players. But the beauty for the likes of Dennis and myself was we were doing snooker exhibitions with each other during this period of time when the brief was different, a bit like when we do the theatre nights. We know full well it's not snooker competitive snooker, it's snooker to entertain people. So Dennis and myself, we knew the route, along with John Virgo and all of the players from that era. We knew how to do exhibitions, so we knew each other really well in that environment. But you just took one step back when it was the tournaments. But I think actually 4 days after maybe we played that final, we were doing an exhibition in Reading. And Dennis and I were back on treading the boards at the Hexagon Theatre, I think, just doing a straightforward exhibition with all of the furore that was going around it. We had to try and make sure we entertained the people, regardless of whether they were watching competitive snooker or not.
And did you win that exhibition, Steve? Did you get your revenge?
I don't know. I think I was on medication at the time.
No,
it's just like I said before, it's a time when I think about a kid and going to the snooker halls and stuff. You walked into a dark room and the lights were on the table and there was something sort of like mystical and magical about it. And it's very relatable as well. And I think when we go to the shows, and we'll talk about the 4 shows we're doing in October in a minute, I get that feeling from people. It's like when they walk into that theatre and they see the light on the table again and they see you guys, it's like they're taken back, and you are very approachable. The thing is with you, Steve, you expect Dennis to be funny, right? You expect you to be quite, dry and stuff, but you're actually very funny too. I've got to say, that's groundbreaking news here for people listening who've not been to one of the shows. Steve's a funny man. He's got some funny stories. So yeah, they're great shows. Yeah. We're out in October. I'm sure I've got these dates right. October the 11th, we're in, we kick off in Portsmouth and then up to Halifax, back down to Bedford. And then the last one is in Croydon. So that's a little mini tour to start. And then we're going off on about 30 dates next year, I believe. But tell people what they can expect from the nights, people who haven't been. Tell people what they can expect to see.
It's just a brilliant show. As I say, we did some and they were going along very nicely indeed until everything hit a brick wall about 18 months or so ago. But it's a 2-hour show. And the first hour is Steve and myself having a few frames. And then we try and recreate that final black and have a little bit of fun about that. And of course, you've got John Virgo there sort of comparing and doing the commentary. And John's very funny in his own right. So it is really a lot of fun. And then the second part of the show, we sit down with JV and just chat about some of the stories and some of the funny stories. And, a good few jokes thrown in as well. And of course, then the audience can get involved with us too. So it's just a brilliant couple of hours show. And it goes down so well in the theatres. And Steve and myself, we don't do many exhibitions now, but we really enjoy those shows because it's nice to see all ages there coming out into the theatres. And it's just a great environment. I'm really looking forward to them.
Yeah, they're great shows. As you say, we did a few before COVID. They were going really well. It'd be great to be back out there. I've got to ask you guys, we just talked about your fun and your great time in snooker. And we know, we went on to have the Stephen Hendrys and the Ronnie O'Sullivans, the John Higgins, Mark Williams, Judd Trumps. Who's the next star for you guys? And who's the person you would like watching the most? And who's the person you think could captivate that audience again?
I mean, there's a whole host of great young players coming through. In this country, in the UK, you'll never get, as Dennis said, the situation arise where the whole nation is watching like they did in the 80s. So to make stars of people, you need everybody to embrace it. But worldwide, these players have much more now than ever before. The game is far bigger than it ever was, viewing-wise. So these players, these young players that are coming through, may not be so well known in the UK, the likes of Yang Bingtao and Jack Lazowski, but worldwide they're getting a following, let alone the players like Ronnie O'Sullivan, John Higgins, Mark Williams, still performing at the very highest level. So you've got this absolutely fantastic melting pot, but whether or not you're going to see an absolute one-off again after Ronnie O'Sullivan to keep that flame burning is hard to know, because they only come along once in a while. But what you do know is the standard is just through the roof of the modern day players. The standard is so good. And it's just nice that we were part of perhaps the stepping stone to that. We were cutting edge. We were cutting edge in our day. That standard is now, has been superseded by a few different eras. But it was nice for us to be cutting edge at that time. And the fact that people come out and that the nostalgia part is still very big for them, it's great to embrace the nostalgia for a one-nighter.
Yeah, and it's great to think back. I mean, we were the first two players to travel to mainland China. We went from Hong Kong into Canton, which is now Guangzhou, and went on a train with about 15 press with us. And to travel into China was an unbelievable experience. And to think that 36 years later, I mean, the two players we played in China, they couldn't make a 20 break. In fact, the fella I played had a tie on him. It was the longest tie I ever seen. When he was taking a shot, it was dangling on the floor. But it's great to see the improvement and how the standard around the world has grown and grown. And, I don't know about Steve, but I was just delighted to have had the opportunity to go to China and then to see how the players have developed. You give it another 10 years, and I think the top 10 in the world, there's going to be an awful lot of Chinese players in there. I just hope the UK can keep the clubs going and introduce the young players from this part of the world, because otherwise they could be overtaken. But I suppose the one to watch, the one that you'd have to say, Ronnie was he took the mantle from Steve and then Stephen Hendry. But Judd Trump is so exciting to watch and commentate on. So he's the one that everybody would like to watch at the moment. But hopefully there'll be a lot more coming through from the UK as well.
Yeah, well, it's exciting times. And Steve, I got something that was someone would have said 10 years ago to me. If it said Steve Davis is going to be out touring DJing, I'd have said, you're winding me up. But having known you a bit, I know how much you love your music and how much you're into it, and you're pretty serious about it. Where can people see a Steve Davis DJ set, and what can they expect from a Steve Davis DJ set?
Oh, well, expect the unexpected, because me and my friend, we play music that's not normal DJ fodder. We try to get people to dance to tracks they've never heard before, which is a very difficult ask. But yeah, we're more likely to turn up at music clubs than sort of festivals, but we do the occasional festival. But I'm not too sure that there's not that much happening at the moment. I think we're looking at getting a residency at a brewery in Walthamstow area called Exhale. We might be doing a sort of bi-monthly thing there, just much more sort of listening stuff. But yeah, we got a few DJing things coming up, but not too many at the moment. And then a band as well. I'm involved in a band as well. So it was no plan to do this. It's just gone from when I retired, I had more time to do things, and things just went stupid. So I'm a DJ. I've DJed at Glastonbury. Who could have believed that?
That is crazy. And I mean, I've found the gap in the market I've been waiting for. Now, what we're going to do, guys, the plan's changed. We're going to do the exhibition, do the Q&A. We're going to clear the stage, and Steve's going to do a DJ set. It's 2 in 1. It's 2 in 1. What more could you ask for?
You must go along to see it, because at York a couple of years ago, Steve was, while the UK Championships was on, and we didn't tell him, he was working at I forget the name of the club, and Ken Doherty, myself, Stephen Hendry, Alan McManus all turned up and walked in, and there was the man performing on stage, and and what a shock he got when he seen all us boys. But I'll tell you what, it was pretty good. It was noisy, and there was a lot happening, but it was great fun. Yeah, great fun.
I heard your dancing was legendary that night, Dennis. That's what the boys said.
Well, listen, you know, I wasn't on Strictly for nothing. 5 weeks I stayed in, yeah. Twinkle Toes Taylor. I think everybody else nicked that name afterwards.
Boys, I won't keep you any longer. I've got to say thanks for chatting to me, and I generally can't wait to get back out to the shows. It's always great fun, and people who come along will generally have a top time. They won't be disappointed.
Cheers, Michael. All the best.
Pleasure. See you soon.